Some stories feel unrealistic because they're exaggerated. This one feels unrealistic because it's not. I used to work as a private investigator. Most of my cases involved divorce, financial disputes, or missing persons. They usually ended with paperwork and disappointment, both for myself and for my clients. This case ended with the realization that I had never been fully in control. It began with a woman named Marissa Cole. Marissa didn't cry when she came into my office. Her hand shook slightly, but her voice remained steady. "I think my husband is cheating," she said. I had heard that statement many times before. I asked what led her to believe that. "He leaves late at night, he hides his phone, and he lies about where he's been." Then she paused. "And sometimes, he smells like metal." She slid a photograph across my desk. His name was Evan Cole. He was in his early 40s, well-groomed, and unremarkable in appearance. The type of person who would not normally draw attention. "I don't want drama," she said. "I just want the truth." I accepted the case. At the time, I didn't recognize that I had already been selected for a role. Evan's life appeared ordinary. He worked a standard office job, he kept a predictable schedule, and he lived in a quiet neighborhood. Without professional obligation, he would have been easy to overlook. But 3 nights a week, he left his home around 10:30 p.m. He didn't act anxious or secretive. He moved without confidence, as if he had no reason to hide his behavior. So I started to follow him. He didn't meet another woman. He didn't go to bars. He didn't even socialize. Instead, he drove to isolated parts of the city, industrial zones, abandoned buildings, and roads with little traffic. The first night, I stayed in my vehicle and watched him disappear into darkness. When he returned, there was a dark stain on his cuff. It appeared to be blood. In this line of work, patterns matter. People involved in infidelity often behave nervously. They rush, hesitate, and constantly check their surroundings. Evan did none of those things. His behavior suggested planning rather than impulse. I started to review his background. There was no criminal record, no history of violence, and nothing immediately suspicious. I expanded the search and compared his travel routes with missing persons reports. That's when a pattern emerged. Different individuals, different circumstances, repeated locations. Disappearances occurring late at night in remote areas. No bodies were ever recovered. At that point, the case no longer resembled a domestic investigation. On a later surveillance attempt, I followed Evan on foot as he entered a deteriorating warehouse. I waited outside, standing just beyond the range of a streetlight. Then I heard a scream. It was brief, muffled, and clearly distressed. It stopped abruptly. After that, there was silence. I approached a broken window and listened. Footsteps, dragging, controlled breathing. The sounds didn't suggest panic or disorder. They suggested familiarity. That was when I stopped treating this as a cheating investigation. I documented the case carefully. Photographs, timestamps, and recordings. My intention was to bring the information to law enforcement, but one morning, I returned to my office to find the door unlocked. Nothing was missing, but my files had been rearranged, not searched through. On my desk was a photograph of me standing beside my car, taken the previous night. Evan was aware of my presence, and it became clear that he had likely known for longer than I had assumed. After that, I began to notice changes. A vehicle parked near my apartment on multiple occasions, silent phone calls, and footsteps outside my door at night. One time, I woke up to the sound of breathing in my hallway. I grabbed my weapon from my nightstand and illuminated the doorway with a flashlight. No one was there. There was only the faint scent of metal. I returned to Marissa and disclosed what I had discovered, but she didn't react with surprise. She appeared relieved. "I know," she said quietly. She confirmed that she had suspected her husband for years. Unexplained stains, clothing that did not belong to him, and a locked bag he refused to discuss. "I didn't know what else to do," she said. "I thought if someone followed him, he might stop." At the time, I believed she was afraid. That was not the full explanation. I followed Evan one final time. He drove beyond the city limits, into wooded back roads, and stopped near an abandoned house. I decided to go inside, and I found a collection of personal belongings. There were photographs, wallets, and driver's licenses. These were all trophies. I looked to my right and saw a wall nearby that had names carved into it. Some had been crossed out. Some appeared recent, but one name was carved more deeply than the others. Victor Hale. My name. A voice spoke behind me. "You're persistent," Evan said. He stood in the doorway, calm and smiling. He remarked that it felt appropriate to return the attention I had given him. I made a move toward my weapon, but he was already closer than expected. "You should have stopped," he said, "but you never do." "I didn't choose you," he continued. "She did." He explained that his wife had selected me. According to him, Marissa had not hired me out of fear, but out of precaution. She wanted someone invested in the case, someone who could draw suspicion away from them if needed, someone who could be framed. "She finds them," he said. "I deal with them." The investigation had not begun with concern. It had begun with planning. Marissa was not an uninvolved spouse. She was a participant. Evan had not been hunting me. He had been assessing me, determining how far I would go, evaluating whether I would break, considering whether I could replace him. He chose not to kill me. Instead, he suggested that I was already similar to them. He implied that my determination, curiosity, and persistence had placed me closer to their world than I wanted to admit. And he let me leave. Not as an act of mercy, but as an experiment. I reported everything to the police. By the time authorities investigated, the location had been cleared. Marissa and Evan were gone. There was no physical evidence, no corroboration. There was only my records, which could be interpreted as obsession rather than investigation. To some people, I appeared unstable. I had no choice. I left my profession. I even changed my name. I attempted to live without revisiting the case. But the most troubling realization is not fear. It's the understanding that I did not stop because of moral conviction. I stopped because I was afraid. And at times, I wonder what would have happened if I had continued. I think about Marissa and how controlled she appeared in my office. I think about how deliberately she chose someone who could take responsibility if their situation collapsed. I think about whether Evan ever stopped, and whether they are still searching for someone else. Someone persistent, someone curious, someone who believes they are in control. If you ever find yourself hired to follow someone who only leaves at night, consider the possibility that you are not investigating a threat. You may be undergoing evaluation, not to expose a monster, but to determine whether you could become one. Thank you for watching. If you're drawn to stories that explore the darker side of human nature, consider subscribing to the channel. New videos are released regularly. Until next time, stay aware. Some stories aren't meant to scare you. They're meant to remind you how easily danger can hide in plain sight.